welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Maqbool, with you at PTV WORLD. In the debate today, we will be talking about two very important issues. The first is with reference to the Samjhota Express incident, which happened back on 18th of February 2007, in which a number of people lost their lives. And more importantly, the blame, as usual, was given on Pakistan by the Indian side, something that we've seen in the past happen many times before as well. And we were just discussing yesterday as well with reference to the freedom struggle that is going on in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Any attack for that matter is blamed on Pakistan. But of course, there is huge evidence that links not only the Samjhota Express incident and other such incidents to the fact that this was something that was planned by people in power, people of influence linked to RSS. And we've seen that a lot of this has come out previously as well and has been spoken about, reiterated and highlighted, not just from Pakistan, but also from the investigation itself of the Samjhota Express and other such incidents in which this has come to light that the people who have been involved with RSS have been the masterminds behind these attacks. And because of that, this is an important question to be dealt with and to explore further as to how these attacks are being planned within India by Indian people, by the people who are responsible for such hate crimes, and for the sole purpose of maligning Pakistan and destroying relations between India and Pakistan and putting the blame on Pakistan for that matter. We're going to talk more about the Samjhota Express and related incidents and the way that India has always accused Pakistan for such incidents in the past. We will also be taking a look at the upcoming visit of Prime Minister Imran Khan to Russia, where he will be talking about various important issues, specifically with regards to enhancing bilateral trade and cooperation, and also particularly in terms of the energy sector. Two very important gas pipeline projects are also going to be discussed further with Russia, something which is very important to Pakistan and for the need in Pakistan to be able to get gas at cheaper prices, something that we want to be able to do so by means of these gas pipeline projects so that we can progress economically and also fulfill the needs of our countrymen. This is something that is going to be explored further in the upcoming visit by Prime Minister Imran Khan to Russia. What other areas are going to be spoken about? What sort of cooperation and collaboration efforts can we see coming forward between Russia and Pakistan? And what is the trajectory of the relationship between these two countries in the coming months and years? Is something we're going to talk about in further detail. As you can see, I've been joined by Raja Faisal and Farrukh Pitafi in the studios as always, and online we have been joined for our first segment with reference to the Samjhota Express blast. We've been joined by Brigadier Retired Mr. Haris Nawaz, who's a security analyst. Thank you very much, Brigadier Haris, for being with us on the debate. As we all know, tomorrow is going to be the anniversary of the Samjhota Express blast, and something that we really want to be able to discuss and dissect over here is that there has been so much evidence in the past as well, also linked to the investigation of the Samjhota Express blast, that this is something that India is involved with, India has planned. People related to RSS have been the masterminds behind this attack. Yet, we've seen that the blame, as usual and as always, has been given to Pakistan. Despite the way that we've seen the different measures and actions taken by the Indian regime with regards to how they're handling their country, human rights situation, Kashmir, and of course these blasts and terrorist activities as well, how is it that we still don't see the kind of response that we want to be able to see, the kind of acknowledgement that we want to see that this is in fact indeed something that India is responsible for and not Pakistan?
You see, the problem is you must understand at that time BJP was not in that so power, and Narendra Modi was Chief Minister of Gujarat, and now BJP is having a total control, and then Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister along with the four group of extremist elements like Rajnath Singh, Amit Shah, Ajit Doval. So they are the one who are now in the helm of affairs. So that's all thing the more deteriorated. If you remember what happened in 18 February 2007, when this blast was occurred, how the gentlemen were trained, who trained him, and then Pakistan was blamed that Pakistan banned organizations have done something else. And later when the inquiry was conducted, it was proven that it was BJP and their or RSS and their different organizations, they were all part of it to have done this, to just put the Muslims on mat. And before that, even 2006, if you remember, there were a lot of incidents, Bay Sharif, then Muslim cemeteries, they were blasted. So things were happening, they were brewing up, and it was the last action which they did in 2017 and 7 with 63 dead, 43 Pakistani Muslims. I think then there were around 18 Indian and then there were 15 unidentified. So after
Right.
that, the gentleman who was doing inquiry, you remember, Mr. I think his name was Hemant Karkare.
Hemant
He
Karkare?
was the yeah, he was the person who was doing investigation,
Yeah.
and he was killed. It was planned by these extremist organizations because he
Right.
had reached to the conclusion that the Hindu
And that's a
extremists were
very good
involved in
point,
it.
sir. Brigadier
So
sir, let us talk about something which is before our eyes. Abhinav Bharat is one terrorist organization which had Colonel Purohit, an active duty colonel of Indian Army, and then Swami
Right, and of
Asimanand.
course we've seen that this is a really important issue, and it's something that we need to delve in further as to what really happened and who really was involved in such incidents as well in the past. We'll explore that further as well. But Brigadier Harris, with regards to what we see happening in India right now as well, and the kind of mechanisms that keep going forward and what is being spoken about, we also see that the RSS and the way that they're involved is something that is not shared or brought to light as much as it needs to be, as much as it should be, specifically with regards to findings or investigations or such reports that need to be made public. Can there be any way forward with that?
again, Narendra Modi and BJP and their foreign vision of RS, nothing can be done. Rather, I would say India is being dragged towards disasters. That's a basic issue, I would say. And every day things are being generated. Now you can see the problem on Karnataka hijab issue, and they find an opportunity where they try to degrade and create a lot of problems for the Muslims. And that's what I say, till the time Judge Gentleman is there, along with the group of four, I always say, then there is no chance of improvement. Every day they are going towards extremism, and that secular, uh, the spot they had, that is not being finished. They are not pushed about it. They openly say, we are national Hindus and we want that it should be Hindu state. And that is what is going to create a lot of problems. You see, what happening is, just see what is happening in Kashmir, then it is a Sikh problem, then Christians. On Christians, we know what all has happened over there with all the minorities. They all are coming up and things are brewing. When things are brewing, one day they have to boil and they have to blast. And that day we are creating, and I think I am very sure within a lifespan we will see that India is going to be in the smaller states like Soviet Union unless they improve. And the issue is they have the support of USA, then there are so many other countries, they have their business interests, they've got their political and strategic interests, they are a part of the Quad group. So these all things are being supported and they give a lot of strength to Indian government. But I would say there are a lot of voices coming from moderate Hindus. They speak always that they condemn it, but then they are not attended. And
Right,
likewise,
absolutely.
Muslims are scared.
Faisal, let me just quickly go back to Farrukh. You were in the middle of the question, Farrukh. We lost your voice because of some technical
Right, and
difficulty. You can
that,
continue.
yeah, very quickly, Brigadier Sahab, since we were talking about the terrorist organizations morphed into political movements in India, let me ask you about Abhinav Bharat, which is clearly a terrorist organization. Swami Asim Anand and then serving Colonel Purohit were arrested and they were under investigation, and then suddenly BJP's government comes and this colonel who was proven to be involved in Malegaon attack, Samjhota involvement and Makkah Masjid as well, he has been allowed to return to active duty. This kind of, manipulation before everybody's eyes, and yet international bodies that worry about terrorism, they don't seem to take notice. Why would that be so?
Yeah, that is a problem because they have lot of interest in India. They turned their eyes towards the other side. What all happened in Kashmir, and this is a clear example. He confessed. This Colonel Prohibit, he confessed And then when the PJP government came in, I think March 2019, they were all acquitted. I mean, everybody knows it. So see how much Indian courts are controlled, Indian Supreme Courts are controlled, and they are so rogue that they are not worried about what is called talking about human rights organizations, human rights watchdog, international amnesty. Nobody there, they're not pushed about themselves because we know that Americans, USA, and along with so many other countries, they are supporting them to draw their own strategic benefits. That's the basic reason. Why to talk about South China
But
Sea
is it
or the
usual,
South China
Brigadier
Sea?
Saab, that any person who has been accused of terrorism in the country and even confessed and remained behind bars, he is allowed to return to active duty anywhere in the world, sir?
It will never happen. At least he should have been retired forcefully, so that you can tell the world that we have not been brought into the active service. But this shows, and this is a lot of humiliation for the Muslims and for so many other countries who's voiced against it, that he was brought back to the active service, which is never done. Generally, if you are blamed, you confess, you are prisoned, and then you are acquitted, that means he is quietly retired. He is retired, so that at least he is not in service. But because the problem is they are not worried, they are not pushed, they don't bother about what is happening around them because the big power is behind them. So that's the reason they are doing it. Otherwise, in normal humanity, with the having some grace or even leadership, or the country would never do it, at least for the sake of it, and to show the people faith that we have taken certain actions. So they are not pushed about anything else. They are now just looking inward.
Brigadier Harris, if you could allow me, sir, I just wanted to highlight another fact that if we talk about the false flag attacks, there is a history, recorded history of India conducting false flag attacks. It starts from the very start of the events that took place between Pakistan and India, and 1971 Fokker hijacking is one of them as well. And then if we go further on, very recent ones are in which Uri and Pulwama, they were false flag attacks just to demonize Pakistan and portray Pakistan as someone being part of investing in the terrorism in Kashmir, which was not the case. It was all staged by themselves. And if we talk about Makki Masjid, if we talk about Samjhota Express, all of these, they were false flag attacks. Swami Asim Anand, who happens to be
Yes.
a member, a lifelong member of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, he at that time when he was caught, the probe which was done against him by National Investigation Agency of India, I just wanted to say of India because they themselves said that he was the culprit and he was behind it, only for the reason that he raised a slogan at that time, bomb for a bomb, bomb ke badle mein bomb. So that's why he did it at that time. And if we take the example of that colonel, he was part of it as well, and they wanted to blame Pakistan for it, so that the people to people interactions and people to people relations which people of India and Pakistan were having, they are hindered and the continuity just gets disrupts. If we talk about government at that time, they probed it and they said it that he was the culprit. But later on, as soon as BJP, which happens to be a political offshoot of RSS, when it comes to power, the very first thing they make sure is that the very courts and the very investigation agencies of India, they acquit Swami Asim Anand. So should we be having any sort of expectations from the system of India, the today's saffronized India? Should we having any sort of expectations? Number one. Number two, how better is the way to highlight these issues more and more? Because what I see is in our media, nobody is doing it. PTV does it, but the other channels, they don't do it.
All right.
Right, very quickly, just to add to
this
this,
is the
because
problem.
it is a very good question. Sir, in 2017, Rohini Salyan, an advocate who was working for NIA, came on record and said that she is under pressure to let people go regarding or go cold on the trail of Swami Asim Anand and others. These interviews are available online. So can we also, take them internationally and show it to the people of the world that this is what India is doing?
I think the first point is everybody in the world knows what India is doing. Nobody can hide it. Whenever Pakistan dignitary is going to United Nations, they have a stage drama, like Pathankot, Uri, Pulwama. Before that, these all incidents of they have dollared in Samjhota and then in Makkah Masjid, and then of course the Muslim cemeteries. So the point is, you remember this Mr. Karkre was when killed. His wife said no, he has not been killed because she was threatened by these RRS Gundas. And then ultimately she went to Supreme Court and they fought for it. And likewise, who doesn't know Simanand and then this General Prohib, they confessed. Everybody knows it. And all evidence was brought. National intelligence agencies, they concluded that they are the culprit. 8 people, 4 were arrested, 4 could not be arrested, and they were all then later on I think March 2019, they were all acquitted. And they are not pushed. What happened to the Babri Masjid? Who doesn't know what has happened over there? What has happened to Kashmir? So many petitions lying in the Supreme Court. They're
Gujarat
not
riots as
coming
well.
priority wise. So the things are very clear. They are not pushed what world thinks. I think number one candidate for FATF is India, and they should be blacklisted. On the contrary, Pakistan, despite having done all the things, still we are grey list and they have throat is hanging because they want to push us. So these are the problems, and I think but the only thing is Pakistan's responsibility is to keep highlighting, keep
Right.
telling the world, keep
And
preparing
that's
the
a good point,
dossiers
sir.
and
Let me
watch.
ask you, let me pick your brain regarding another very important thing. When we are talking about all these false flags, certain ones are proven, certain will still have to prove, like Pulwama, a couple of others as well. But those in which we have any record, for example, I just told you about Rohini Salyan, and then there are umpteen other statements. Caravan magazine interviewed Asim Anand and umpteen other people. These records are Indian records, right? And for example, there is a book by an Indian author, I'm forgetting author's name, but it is about how Mumbai attacks were actually false flag as well, because you pointed out Hemant Karkare and the way he was killed. All this can actually constitute a very cogent case just based on Indian evidences, not ours or not those things that we still have to prove. Why is it
You
that
see,
we shouldn't be agitating it very aggressively? Because I understand the world might know it, but world has this amnesia where it very easily can forget things as well.
the point is, who cares? Indians are not pushed. We know what happened in ICJ. But what I say is Pakistan must continue their all efforts to highlight, to prepare dossier, even to an extent that we should go to ICJ with all the records and in the way you're referring to all magazines and newspapers and evidences against investigating reports, all should be brought up and there should be a comprehensive document prepared and our internationally famed lawyers should go and file a case against Indian, at least put them on the weak wicket. The problem is we just forget. Our all efforts are event to event. Today something has happened. We are very all media programs are coming, but after 7 days everything is quiet, and we forget, and then we wait for the other incident to occur. So that is the problem we have. I think the consistency in our government should be whether it's a PMLN, PTI, or People's Party. The thing national issues, justice issues should be all working, being pushed forward so that there is a continuity and Indians remain worried that something is happening.
Right.
Otherwise, we don't push
Brigadier
them.
Harris, of course, this is something that has been happening in the past as well. All of these issues have been highlighted. And yes, perhaps the world keeps on forgetting them. But since we're also talking about things that have happened in the past or many, many years ago as well, there's also this thing that a lot of it also catches dust. A lot of it is revised and recreated in a way that the accepted truths or the prevalent truths change. Even if the records are there, perhaps there is nobody really listening or checking or going through those or changing their opinions and beliefs and thinking about things differently. It is what it is, and it's being reinforced in history books in the way that it's being taught and discussed. And maybe the average Indian really does believe that perhaps incidents like the Samjhota Express are caused were due to Pakistani elements involved. And this is something, maybe the view that is shared internationally as well. So how do we keep on changing all of the things that in the past as well are being reinforced?
You see, the point is in that, first of all, they are very good writers, and they're the newspapers in Pakistan publications. There should be seminars. In that, we should highlight what is happening in India and what is the way forward. Of course, we can't every time keep talking that okay, we should be doing India with this, or we have to go very violent. But there are moderate people in India and Pakistan that have to be highlighted. And then the people to people contact is very important, because then Indian people perception should change. Because today they are polluted by in the RRS vision, and that is what they feel that Modi is doing right things. He is bringing Hinduism and nationalist thinking over there, but they still feel. I keep discussing with those people, and they say now the secular state is not, India is not meant for that. That is gone. So now we have to say, okay, if we are the neighbors, the boundaries are not going to be changed. So we must find an answer, and the answer is two-pronged strategy. First, keep highlighting what India is doing in the all let's say booklets, dossiers, and keep forwarding. Along with there's a soft image, that is people-to-people contact. There, the
Right.
public should know what is happening.
Right.
Brigadier Haris, since Prime Minister of Pakistan Imran Khan, proactively highlighted the issue of false flag, and he said that, we are expecting that there will be another false flag attack by the Indians in their own side, and they would blame it to Pakistan to stage another conflict. So, and since then, by the way, we hadn't had any of the incidents taking place because it was a proactive, aggressive approach from our Prime Minister, and I think it really worked. Do you think that this approach, proactive approach, should be a continuity into it?
Definitely. You see, the point is, it is a mindset of Indian mentality, and I always talk about extremists, not moderate. That when you are very proactive and you take a very strong stand, they try to bend down. But the moment you show leniency, the way we say we are for peace, they take it our weakness. So that is what they were told. It is both ways, proactive plus also talking to them peacefully.
Right.
Issue is that
Unfortunately,
we need
Brigadier
to be very
Harris,
strong.
that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us in the debate and being part of our first segment. Farrukh, it seems that despite everything that we've discussed so far, we keep circling around what really needs to be done or what can possibly be done. And also with regards to accusations that have been put towards Pakistan for attacks such as the Samjhota Express and others, isn't there a legal route that we can take in terms of defending ourselves?
Right, and that's why I have to actually, earlier I wanted to take a leaf out of Brigadier Saab's book and say that there are various fora, right, where you can go. For example, ICJ, ICC, these are places where you cannot go without India's consent. But there are other bodies, for example, he just pointed out FATF, right? And part of the terrorism mechanism all over the world, may that be false flag or anything else, is money trail. Interestingly, recently, when you talk about various dumps that keep on appearing, one of them is FinCEN dump, right? And in FinCEN leaks, we know that somewhere around to the tune at least of $1 billion went out of India and to accounts which were redoubtable, which were terrorist accounts or similar hate accounts all over the world. And this is where you have record of end-to-end transaction. There are others which have gone to the grey accounts or grey traffic, and they can also be brought back, right? So all these facts, and then remember the disinfo lab and other information mechanisms all over the world. So there is a money trail. All you have to do is be a good prober, right? Western people all over the world are helping you. Disenful Lab didn't take any cue from Pakistan. FinCEN didn't take any cue from Pakistan. Just put all of that together and take it to FATF. When you do that, you can effectively highlight how India has been sponsoring terrorism and continues to do it. Remember, in Samjhota, Pakistanis were killed. And we have a very good case on every aspect. That Samjhota case has been, Indian government has been going for this bait and switch, showing Gujarat model and then delivering the other kind of Gujarat model where Muslims are marginalized or killed. So that kind of method where everything or evidence is removed before your eyes, brick by brick, can be actually highlighted and India exposed.
Right, and that is something that we need to absolutely follow through, and perhaps something that hopefully can give us results as well. We'll move on to our next segment now, where we have been joined by Leonid Seven, who's a political analyst, and he's also the DG of the Foundation of Monitoring and Forecasting in Russia. Thank you very much, Leonid, for joining us in the debate once again. We're going to be talking about Prime Minister Imran Khan's upcoming visit to Russia and the kind of cooperation and agreements that we can see coming out of this visit, and how we can explore and develop our relationship further. With regards to the way that Russia and Pakistan's relationship is developing, of course, the energy cooperation is of utmost importance as well. In particular, of course, two gas pipeline projects which are very important to Pakistan. What, moving forward, do you see in terms of the way that we can go around getting involved in these projects? And then, of course, with regards to the Russian company Gazprom as well, that we see is, of course, undergoing US sanctions. How does Pakistan collaborate with the Russian government in order to move ahead with that?
Now, of course, visit Prime Minister Imran Khan is very welcome to Russia. It will be first trip to Moscow. I know from diplomatic circles here in Moscow that it will be short visit. It will be framed by official protocol only. But I think it's very important from a symbolical point of view, because Russia and Pakistan will be more engaged to each other. Second, of course, we have some economical projects already mentioned in gas, in energy sector, but also Russia can bring more technologies to Pakistan, and of course, very important humanitarian sector of relations between Russia and Pakistan, so-called track 2 of diplomacy, for business, for science, for education, for research, for cultural exchanges, etc. Our citizens should look now each other more and more, because in Russia, people not familiar with contemporary Pakistan culture, with politics, with state itself. And I think in Pakistan the same. Only some people know a little bit about Russia. And I also think that will be stagnant some agreement for military technical cooperation between two countries, because Russia very famous for some important sectors, for defense industry, and some kind of
right.
technology.
So in terms of cooperation with regards to other countries and foreign policy decisions as well, particularly, of course, Afghanistan and other issues which are important to Pakistan, how do you see the two countries being able to collaborate on that?
Yes, and both Russia, Pakistan, also Iran, and some Central Asian countries are already working for resolution of Afghan crisis. And Pakistan is very important actor, can influence and have experience, and Russia during the Soviet times also very experienced with Afghan reality. So this question also will be on table during the negotiation, I'm sure. And it's very important also just to block external actors like United States to join this process, because they can do nothing, only can bring some destructive elements to Afghan peacemaking process. So I think it will be also discussed, and also more about geo-economical cooperation, about Belt and Road Initiative, about Eurasian Economic Union, and how to join this project. And I think that China-Pakistan Economic Corridor will be also discussed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Leonid, I just wanted to ask earlier you highlighted one aspect, and that was of Pakistan and Russia both having concerns related to terrorism. Of course, in Afghanistan, there are concerns which we are sharing, but there is another concern, security related concern, that is of Indo-Pacific. Of course, Russia has concerns over American presence in Indo-Pacific, and we have our concerns related to Indian presence in Indo-Pacific, of course. So is there a possibility that we could see a sort of defense cooperation enhanced in this meeting?
I think yes, not only defense and security itself, because it's very important to establish good security in South Asia, in Central Asia, in Eurasia itself. And we already cooperating with Pakistan. And our experts and the Pakistani expert, Mr. Youssef, also visited Russia, met with Mr. Patrushev, who is head of National Security Council. And of course, Quad, from Russian point of view, is undermined regional stability there in the Pacific region.
Right, and Lenny, since you have been mentioning the Eurasian bloc or the philosophy around Eurasian bloc, I just wanted you to help us understand what exactly is it, and how is it different from the will of Peter the Great?
Complicated questions. There is Eurasian Economic Union. It's limited. But Mr. Putin proposed that idea of greater Eurasia, idea of big Eurasian space. It means that all countries in Eurasian continent should cooperate to each other. No conflicts, no wars. And I think it's a very good proposal. It will be very fruitful, and it's very realistic. Only some external actors are interested to get some dividends from regional conflict. This means that Russia may be like mediator between East and between the West, between European Union and between Eastern countries like Pakistan.
Leonid, we know that we are going to have talks on gas pipeline from Russian side that reaches to Pakistan. There is another thing, better connectivity, which needs to be generated between Russia, from Russia to Pakistan through Central Asian republics and Afghanistan. And of course, it is going to benefit all of the countries in between. I just wanted to know, do you think that this initiative, if it is discussed and agreed upon, of having a better connectivity, would help all of these countries in coming future to have better bilateral trade? As right now, Pakistan and Russia, they do have trade between, but it's very marginalized type of trade. And could we see that in coming future it would be much greater?
I think if more actors will be engaged for cooperation, then it will be a good example for other countries, for small actors and for middle actors in the region. For example, Russia and Iran cooperating in energy sector. We cooperated in energy sector with different countries of Central Asia. It's not only about gas supplies only. It's also about nuclear energy, about electricity, and for example, CASA project, that means export of electricity from Central Asian country to Afghanistan. And interconnectivity will be good benefit for all us. And it also will be a good platform for development and trade economic relations too.
Right. Since we are talking about bilateral cooperation in various aspects, and there is one very interesting thing that that is one of the reasons why Russia has been in international news, although perhaps with a negative spin, and that is the software industry and your cyber security, your ability to understand the cyber world map and how to actually work around it. Pakistan has also been trying to actually focus on this. Right now, let me remind everybody that one of Pakistan's friends, Bill Gates, is visiting Pakistan. And although now he is also investing in polio and other vaccines, but his actually hallmark was software. Is there a possibility of a software or digital cooperation between Russia and Pakistan?
As like now, China is very well engaged in Pakistan for such kind of cooperation, but Russian expertise and Russian engineers and Russian-made software also may be useful in Pakistan too. Why not? And of course, for example, in Russia we have quotas for education for students, and Pakistani students may get good education.
To add to this, a similar question, emerging technologies and artificial intelligence in the field of, in these two fields, of course, Pakistan has the workforce, a very well educated workforce. There are AI and emerging technology grads who are ready to work, but we are waiting for FDIs, foreign direct investment. Do you think that it would be on the tables as well, and we talking to Russia and Russia planning to have some kind of investment in the emerging technology and AI sector?
Yes, we have such experience and such results dealing with other countries in Africa, in some European countries, and in Latin America. So I think it may be useful for Pakistan. We have a direct investment fund for producing, for example, Sputnik V vaccine and provided it to Latin American countries at just only one segment. And of course, IT technologies is also very important for Russia. And Russia invested a lot of funds for this project. We can to organize a joint venture company or something like that. So I think, yes, it will be discussed too.
Leonard, when we see, of course, that Putin was also in China, where Prime Minister Imran Khan also went to China with regards to attending the Winter Olympics in Beijing, and we saw Russia and China also bringing out their joint statements and talking about collaboration as well. And as you know, China and Pakistan have been close friends for a long time now as well. Can we see perhaps a more closer sphere of influence between Russia, China, and Pakistan develop in the future? And also, can we see Russia being a more significant part in terms of our economic investments with China as well, particularly CPEC?
Yes, our relation mostly bilateral. Russian-China, Russian-Pakistani, Pakistani-Chinese. But there, for example, was idea of triangle. It's not about Pakistan, but India, China, and Russia cooperation. Idea of ex-Prime Minister Evgeny Primakov. But this project was not released, and I think it will be a good idea that it will be Pakistan will join this kind of club, like BRICS. For example, BRICS is a deal like a club without any statute and without any official documents, but it's very productive. The same may be useful for our three countries, Russia, China, and Pakistan.
Leonid, another very important question, though I shouldn't call it important myself, but right now we know that Prime Minister of Pakistan, he's been highlighting the factor of Islamophobia since a long time, and then very recently we saw President Putin, he highlighted it as well, and right now there is something going on in India. Islamophobia is at its peak within India. Could we see the coming up meetup between Prime Minister of Pakistan and President Putin? There will be a joint statement related to it, owing to the fact that lots of things are going on within India?
India is a little bit sensitive for Russian policy because of bilateral ties and some contracts between Russia and India. But that I see problems that India to use very smart disinformation campaign. Against Pakistan, they use one factor, and against Russia, they use another type of factor. For example, some Indian media recently distributed some histories about Ukrainian crisis. Of course, Russia posed like a kind of aggressor. That is not true. So it should be more investigated, for example, and we can to find the common ground just to deny any Indian attempts to do disinformation and Islamophobia campaign. And of course, I think there will be a place to discuss about Christianophobia in India too, because sometimes
Right.
there
We're
Very,
almost out
very
of time,
quick,
Faisal.
very quick question, Leonid. Do you think that countries that are a victim of, propaganda by the Indian channels and propaganda by specific, there are a short number of channels in the West as well that are constantly doing propaganda against countries like Pakistan, China, and Russia. Do you think that media houses in China, Russia, and Pakistan, they have to have a better coordination in between them to counter that propaganda?
I think yes, and I already discussed it and proposed it many times about for last 4 years that we should more cooperate in information sphere between our countries. We have good cooperation between official media of Russia and China, but still no good cooperation between Pakistani and Russian media. And I hope
Right.
this meeting it will be discussed.
Thank you, Leonard Savin, for being with us on the debate and taking the time out with regards to this topic. Of course, our relationship with Russia is an important one, and we want to develop it further. But Farrukh, do you see that the Indian aspect, as Leonard was talking about, will put a stop as to how much we can develop our relationship with Russia?
Not at all. I think this is one subject that I'm very pleased to actually talk about. It brings back memories, right? Back in 1990s, when after the collapse of Soviet Union, that was the time when I was also looking for avenues to go abroad and study further, right? At that time, one of the options was Russia. And I went and explored various places, right?
Okay.
Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other places. And I fell in love with the place. You know, my elder daughter, her name, Oksana, actually is borrowed from Russian literature.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Russia is a beautiful country. And one thing, back in 2000 and 2001 and 2, I was not starting, but I very aggressively started writing in favor of establishing relationship with Russia. And this term that you also come across these days, multipolarity, need for multipolarity, I can say that I was one of the few people at that time who cast the earliest stones. But sadly or fortunately, the situation has changed. And the world, the way one small microbe or virus has shown us, the world is too connected now. There is no need for multipolarity. There is need for a global union, right? At that time, I think Russia's messaging at times is misinterpreted. And similarly, Pakistan has been actually subject of India's propaganda. But if these two countries can actually cut through all this negativity, I think we have a lot of future together because of Eurasian roots, because of their Russia's eastern roots as well, right? We have so much in common that we will never stop enjoying this relationship. And I'm glad that despite all the atmospherics, the Prime Minister is going there. I don't know whether the atmospherics change drastically in coming days, but if they don't, and if this visit actually takes place, it is great news for Pakistan, it is good news for Russia, and it is great news for Central Asia, which needs connectivity on both sides because it is landlocked area.
True.
Faisal, with regards to the aspect that we were discussing earlier between China, Russia, and Pakistan, this is something that you've spoken about before as well, that Russia perhaps will be willing to join CPEC. What do you have to say about that?
I keep on saying this, and nowadays especially, I see Russia being part of CPEC. And the biggest reason behind it is that Russia has concerns over obviously America's presence in Indo-Pacific in shape of AUKUS, in shape of Quad. And
Indo or Pacific, because both are different places. They are not one.
Indo-Pacific, the whole
Indo and Pacific.
Indo and Pacific.
Can we say use some term like Atlanto-Pacific as well? I mean, there are continents in between.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah,
Right.
but Farrukh, to me, I think Russia has concerns over it, and Russia wants a better presence in Indo-Pacific. And that's why I see that happening, I see that taking place. I see, I think Russia is looking on India as well. Why I was highlighting the emerging technologies and artificial intelligence, that in the IT sector, America has huge investments within India, and of course, Russia sees that as well, and Russia sees a potential within Pakistan in the youth. 67% of population of Pakistan is in between 15 to 35, which is a plus. And Pakistanis, they have they have always worked into emerging technologies and artificial intelligence as well. But the only thing that is lacking right now is FDI in this sector, and to match that, I can sort of grab on a feeling that very soon we would be seeing Russian investors investing in IT sector of Pakistan, and the IT hubs would be created in Pakistan.
No, I'm not going to as much disagree. Repeatedly we keep on treading into places where I have been, and AI is my title or topic of my thesis, right? And I've written a thesis on it. AI is very interesting thing when you talk about artificial neural networks. The placement and creation of artificial neural networks is not a big deal. After that, what you need is data to train it, right? What India, the US or Facebook has done in India is that they have gone there, and with the Indian companies, they have created this sort of fintech environment using WhatsApp, through which they can mine data. So I don't know how or what exactly are we talking about when we talk about investment, particularly in AI. But AI is a journey that we'll have to partake, we'll have to start and accelerate on our own. We can work together with others. For example, when it comes to warfare, in warfare, AI training is very important, and Russian data and Pakistani data can work together. But regarding this repeated reference to Indo-Pacific, troubles me, because I just pointed out Peter the Great's will, and that was access to hot waters through these regions, right? The problem is that there are people sitting all over the world in think tanks, particularly Indians, who have this habit of muddling all waters. So I will be very careful when I actually keep on acceding to any kind of constructs just to bolster their case. Because if I end up bolstering their case, that is an indictment of ours, right?
Absolutely.
So this is very important, and we have to remember cooperation between the two countries should be a cooperation between the two countries. CPEC or RPEC or any other PEC.
Right.
We have to work.
And any other country, any country that of course should be able to invest in us and to be able to move forward is good for our economy, is important. And of course that also means that it's a democratic and responsible country that we engage with, and we want to be able to explore that further. And there's much that Pakistan can still do with regards to that. And we hope a lot comes out of this visit as well. That remains to be seen. We'll be discussing that hopefully in our shows next to come. For that's it for now, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9.